in Naples, Florida. Hurricane Wilma, after all the talk, is here on our doorstep. Wind gusts where I stand approaching 70 miles an hour. Much of the people here have headed for high ground. The question is, will everybody in southwestern Florida be safe as Wilma comes ashore? This is CNN, your hurricane headquarters. Hello, everybody. I'm Miles O'Brien. We're right in the teeth of it here in Naples, Florida, as Hurricane Wilma comes ashore. We're at the Admiralty Point Condominium Complex, right here on the beach in Naples. The surf is just out there in the darkness, and it is getting much higher and much rougher as Hurricane Wilma reaches landfall, gets to the point where it gets to be a serious situation for southwestern Florida. From the Florida Keys all the way up beyond where I stand at Fort Myers, we are watching things. And in New York, in for Soledad this morning, Zane Verjee. Good morning, Zane.
Good morning to you, Miles. I'm Zane Verjee. As Miles said, in for Soledad this week. We have so much to cover on Hurricane Wilma. From here as well, I'm going to be talking to a forecaster from the National Hurricane Center in just a moment. It's a Category 3 hurricane capable of a lot of damage. We want to get started straight away. Let's go to Miles in Naples. Miles?
All right, thank you very much, Zane. Sustained winds here are at least 30 miles an hour, but these gusts, which you're seeing right now, get us way, way higher. Lots of rainfall expected here, perhaps a storm surge as high as 9, maybe even 12 feet by some predictions. We've got this story covered all the way up and down this affected coast of Florida. Key West, Gary Tuckman is there, where we saw the first inkling that Wilma was going to be serious business just a little while ago. We'll check in with him. I'm here in Naples, Florida, just to the south of me, Marco Island. Anderson Cooper, along with CNN's John Zarella, will check in and see what's going on there. To the north of me, Fort Myers. We have people there as well. Across the state, this is a storm that will move across the state 20, 25 miles an hour. Will bring hurricane force winds to the east coast of Florida as well. In Hollywood, Florida, we have CNN's Alan Chernoff. We have this story covered as well with our affiliate teams all around the state of Florida. There's nobody that has more resources put to bear on Hurricane Wilma. So just sit back, stay in a safe, dry place, and make sure you are safe as you watch. In addition to all that, we have CNN's Jason Carroll in our Hurricane 1 vehicle, which allows us mobility to cover a storm and move along and get the information as it is happening. CNN's Jason Carroll checking in with us now. Jason, where are you?
They switch positions, Kadani and Adam.
Right now we are in downtown Naples, and what we're doing is we're moving along US 41, which is an area that cuts right through Naples. And I have to tell you, in terms of the conditions that we're seeing out here right now, just a little while ago when we were stationary, we were trying to get Hurricane 1 up and running, and one of the gusts was so strong, so powerful, shook the car, rocking it back and forth. My photographer, Walter, looked at me with one of those sort of uncomfortable smiles, and we knew things were getting very, very serious. Had an opportunity to speak to the mayor. He told us that he believes most of the people in Naples at this point have evacuated. That is certainly good news for the people here in Naples, because as you drive along US 41 at this point, you can really get a sense of just how powerful Hurricane Wilma is. We've seen a number of downed trees, which you see oftentimes through these types of things. We're moving very slowly at this point because there's a tree right in front of us, so we're moving around it. We've also seen down power poles. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be following the hurricane as it moves east. We're going to be taking US 41 as slowly and just as carefully as we can as Hurricane Wilma hits Florida. Miles?
CNN's Jason Carroll with Hurricane 1. We invite you and your team to be very careful as you drive down the road they call Alligator Alley. Cuts right through the Everglades. On a good day, it's a tough road. On a day like today, it's something you really need to be careful about, but he will be checking in with us with our Hurricane 1 team all throughout the morning, literally following this storm as it goes across Florida, 20 to 25 miles an hour. That is a fast-moving storm. CNN's Chad Myers in the Weather Center to give us a sense of it. Chad, I was looking at some of these predictions, and what I found most interesting as it moves across, there will be periods of time when the entire lower part of the Florida Peninsula will be feeling hurricane force winds. That's west to east coast.
No question. Absolutely, Miles. All the way from where you are now, and I know your winds, I just checked them, 75-mile-per-hour gusts there, right across Alligator Alley, all the way over Coral Springs down to Miami. We've spent a lot of the night focusing on the landfall for Naples and Key West and Isla Mirada and Big Pine. Now it's time to focus on the millions of people that live from Florida City through Homestead, Cutler Ridge to Miami, right on up even into Fort Lauderdale. This now is the most dangerous part of the storm for millions of people living right through here. This was basically to the south and east of there, south and east of Naples. That's basically, well, I mean, it's all Everglades. A few people live there, but not nearly the number that now we're going to affect from Isla Mirada up through Key Largo, storm surge coming into the lower Keys here to the middle Keys, and finally now the upper Keys. Up to the north of there, across Card Sound Road, across the 18-mile stretch, winds gusting over 75 at Jewfish Creek Bridge. Back up here to Miami now. The heaviest wind not quite to you, but not far away at the airport. The wind's just gusting to 59 miles per hour. And when this yellow and orange gets into the city, gets into the I-95 Turnpike corridor, everyone here will see winds gusting to about 100. That will take off shingles. That will move things around. That could even do some significant damage to mobile home and mobile home parks. So you need to be careful here. We know we've done a lot of focusing on the western part of the peninsula, but now it's time to focus on the east. Time for you people off to the east in those big cities to be careful. Hunker down and stay away from those windows, because we are going to have a lot of damage in the east as well. Back to you.
Chad, worth pointing out, for people who have endured hurricanes that have come from the other direction there, it's not the same set of windows you need to be as worried about necessarily, right?
Isn't that amazing? Everybody boards up and everybody buys storm surge shutters and everything for the eastern windows, thinking the storm is going to come across the Bahamas with an east wind. This wind is from the south and then from the west. And most of those windows don't have shutters, at least the ones that my friends own. They didn't bother to buy shutters for that side of the house, so they're just going to be watching those windows going back and forth and back and forth at winds sustained at 125, even maybe by the time it gets there, maybe to 120, but not losing any more speed than 5 or 10 miles per hour, Miles.
All right, Category 3 strength, 120 to 125 miles an hour, and it might very well be coming from the weak side, the side of your home that may be weakest, put it that way. CNN's Gary Tuckman in Key West. It's been a wild scene there, and it may not surprise you if you know Key West that a healthy majority of people decided to stay and ride out the storm. Gary, I think there were 4 evacuations of Key West this season, and people might be a little hurricane worried. I wonder if there's a lot of regrets there this morning.
Well, we don't know yet, Miles. I will tell you the worst part of the storm here in Key West was between 2:30 and 4:30 Eastern time. It's improved quite a bit. That's not saying it's great outside right now. And we have a lot of concerns. I mean, one of the things about a hurricane, when it happens overnight, things fly around. You don't know what's happening. And just a short time ago, this piece of roofing fell off and landed like that about 10 feet away from us. This is not a risk-free occupation. We try to limit the risk as much as possible, but obviously that scared us a lot when we heard that noise coming down from this roof behind me. Right now here in Key West, the southernmost city in the continental United States, we are dealing with a lot of flooding. That's what we've been told. We don't know how serious it is. We know it's not unexpected because the elevation of Key West, the highest elevation, is 1.5 feet above sea level, and we were told in the best case scenario they'd have an 8-foot storm surge. We know near the ocean to my left, a big storm surge, there's flooding. We know near the bay in the Gulf of Mexico to my right, a storm surge is flooding. What they are very concerned about is this street behind me, if it would flood. This is Duval Street, the main street through the business district. That's another thud we hear behind me. The main street in the business district here in Key West. This has not flooded yet, but many buildings have. We have just found out from a CNN crew out on the scene right now that the fire department, there's 3 fire departments, 3 fire stations here in Key West. One of them had to be evacuated because the water started getting too high, so they pulled the fire trucks out of the fire station and brought them to another one. An apartment complex nearby, the water has gotten too high, so people on the first floor have gone to the second floor. And you're saying, why are those people even dealing with that in the first place? Why didn't they evacuate? 28,000 people live here. It's estimated that only about 5,500, 6,000 evacuated. Another 22,000 decided to stay for two reasons. One, they haven't had a hurricane directly hit Key West since 1919, so people kind of become complacent. But also the nearest shelter is 150 miles away in Miami-Dade County. A lot of people just didn't want to have to deal with that ride. They've stuck it out, and it really was a frightening early morning in the dark with those winds we had for over 2 hours, more than 100-mile-per-hour sustained winds here in the city of Key West, Florida. Miles?
Yeah, Gary, I think a key point to remind our viewers is, this part of the world, Naples, hasn't had a direct hit, and really since 1960. Hurricane Donna came through here. Hurricane Andrew hit it on the backside, but that wasn't very significant. But there haven't been the number of evacuation orders which we have seen in Key West this year. And I wonder if all those evacuation orders have gotten people lulled into the sense that they can get through this without leaving.
I think there's a mixture here. Yes, that does lull people, but also, Miles, I mean, we all dealt with Hurricane Katrina, all us CNNers, and we all talked about this in Louisiana, Mississippi, how the legacy of what happened with Hurricane Katrina would probably mean that people really would evacuate right away. And we saw it during Rita. I was in Port Arthur and Beaumont, Texas, and we couldn't find a soul on the streets. We found no one in their houses. It was completely empty. So now you have a situation where in Naples and Marco Island, my colleagues are saying that people really have evacuated. But here in Key West, it's a different kind of place. It's a live and let live philosophy, and a lot of people just aren't going to be told.
All right, I think we lost Gary Tuckman. We're going to get back with him as soon as we can. Let's go a little bit north up the coast from where I stand into Fort Myers, where Rob Marciano is. Rob, we're getting battered here. How about you?
I see that, Miles. Not to that extent, but you got to realize our setup here on Fort Myers Beach is southwest of the town of Fort Myers, and the beach actually faces southwest. The winds all afternoon, all night, all morning have been coming offshore as this storm approaches, and we're on the northern fringe of that. So a lot of the wind has been blocked by a bunch of buildings and businesses that line this beach. So the wind's coming up and over the top of us and out to sea, blowing the ocean, or at least the Gulf of Mexico, out to sea, and that's been the good news. The high tide has come and gone. The surge is not going to be an issue here. Probably not going to be much of an issue.
Okay, I think we lost Rob, obviously. I hope you understand we're going through the thick of it here. We're getting into the thick of it. My signal is kind of dicey. We just lost Rob. We just lost Gary. In combination here, it's not just the wind moving our satellite dishes around, which makes it difficult to lock up on the satellite, but this rain is very, very thick and intense, causes what we call a little bit of rain fade, and you can lose people at a moment's notice. Chad Myers up at the Weather Center. Chad, give us a sense about the rain in this one. I remember when we were talking about Rita a little while ago, we were talking about how much rain it generated. What are the predictions for this one?
This one raining sideways for hours with very heavy rain, Miles, but the difference is that this storm is now moving about 24 miles per hour. So when you get a storm that crushes across the state in that amount of time, this thing, you're going to have a sunset. You're going to go to Mallory Square if you want to in Key West tonight and see a beautiful sunset as the storm is completely gone. And look at you, Miles, right here. You are in the northern eye wall right now. Your wind's coming at you from the east. Then you're going to kind of get a piece of the inner eye, and then your winds are actually going to come out of the north. You're going to get a complete different turn for the wind here in less than about 20 minutes to an hour. So it just depends on how your satellite truck is situated behind a building, whether we're going to be able to keep you or not, keep you up on the satellite or not. But very heavy rains now across Naples, across and south of Fort Myers, and we even have had some significant tornadoes to the north of you on up into central Florida, and that's not out of the question for the rest of the day. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this thing is in the Atlantic Ocean, completely gone. But if you are in Miami, Miami-Dade, Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, you're about to get 100 mile per hour, maybe more than that winds. Just look at what Miles is experiencing there. Miles? Miles, I don't have you. Zane, I think I can see Miles, but I can't hear him anymore.
Yeah, we seem to have lost Miles there. As he was saying, I mean, this is a major hurricane approaching, and Miles, as you said, is in the northern eye wall of the storm. And obviously we're going to lose our communication quite easily as this gets going in the region. We've got reporters all around the scene: Gary Tuckman in Key West, Miles in Naples, Anderson Cooper and John Zarella also on Marco Island, and Rob Marciano in Fort Myers. Joining us now, though, is Ed Rappaport, who's the director of the National Hurricane Center. Thanks so much for joining us. First of all, when will it make landfall?
The center is coming ashore now, at least in the next 30 minutes or so, but some of the worst of the weather actually is preceding the center. And you can see the center right here now, and here is Marco Island and Naples, so just a few miles offshore there. But this yellow area out ahead of it is the eastern eye wall that's moving ashore, coming inland with the Category 2 to Category 3 winds over 100 miles per hour. And unfortunately pushing a very high storm surge ashore near and to the south of the center of the hurricane.
Why is it going to move across so fast? What's pushing it?
The hurricane is embedded in an increasing southwesterly flow ahead of an atmospheric disturbance that's up over the United States. And the system, which was nearly stationary, just moving slowly off the Yucatan Peninsula, was forecast to accelerate, and it's doing so now. Moving about 20 miles per hour, and will be moving much more quickly later today, and we expect the center to be exiting the east coast of Florida near noon today.
How many inches of rain can we anticipate?
We can see perhaps 10 inches of rain. Fortunately, the fast-forward speed is going to keep the hurricane from lingering in any particular place. Our greatest concern, though, is going to be the storm surge. And what we're talking about now is a storm surge on the order of 8 feet in Naples, 10 feet in Marco Island, Florida, 15 feet in Everglades City. And we have great concern for lives there, as well as in the Florida Keys, where after the center passes, storm surge could reach 5 to 9 feet.
Chad Myers at our Weather Center has a question for you, Chad.
Ed, I'm very concerned now for the people in the big cities, from Florida City through Homestead, Cutler Ridge, Miami, Opelika, all the way up and down there, with winds gusting to what, 110, 120, but still, I mean, this isn't going to lose a lot of energy over the Everglades, is it?
That's right, and what we've been telling the folks in South Florida is that everyone's going to have Category 1 conditions. Many people will have Category 2, and there will be a few spots of Category 3 as well, with the worst of the weather between about 8 and 11 o'clock this morning. Maybe a little later than that if the storm doesn't accelerate as much as we're forecasting.
Will there be any storm surge on the eastern part of the Florida Peninsula due to the onshore flow, let's say West Palm Beach, and in those canals that people live on there?
We do think there will be some storm surge, but not nearly as much as we're going to see on the southwest coast and the Keys. 2 feet, locally up to 4 feet in the canals, primarily in the southeastern part of the state. Some surge to the north, where you do have that easterly onshore flow that you're talking about to the north of the eye.
Zane?
What will be the most dangerous part of the storm, Ed?
The most dangerous part of the storm is going to be, in terms of location, south of the center and over the Everglades area from about Naples southward. This is the storm surge simulation we have. The red area here indicates storm surge of at least 15 feet. Here's the center passing near Marco Island. Here's Naples, 7 feet of surge, 10 feet of surge near Marco Island, 15 feet of surge of Everglades City. Fortunately, only sparsely populated, and hopefully nobody's out in this area of the southern Florida Peninsula.
All right, Ed Rappaport of the National Hurricane Center, thanks so much. We're going to continue to check in with you throughout the morning. Of course, watching this for many hours, also our own Chad Myers. Chad, when you think hurricane, you have to think flooding as well. Yeah. How far will the flooding go inland as Wilma goes over?
You know, it could go all the way to Florida City. It could run right through the Everglades. This is going to be a bubble of water. A lot of people think of storm surge as like the tidal wave in Hawaii 5.0. That's not the way it happens. Storm surge is a gradual rise, and I say that, well, a little tongue-in-cheek, gradual rise. You could sometimes go up 2 foot a minute, but we're not talking this surge wave that you could actually surf. It is a surge of water that bubbles up that is going to come through the Everglades, and as it bubbles through the Everglades, there's nothing really to stop it there. A couple canals, a couple of causeways. Yes, we know about the Tamiami Trail and all that, but this water easily could get to the western edge of Miami-Dade, right there along the canals there. Not so much worried about that because, I mean, literally, this is going to be a saltwater flood for an area that is designed to flood, the Everglades. What I'm really more concerned with are these bands of wind, and these winds will generate winds 100 to 120 miles per hour there in the Miami-Dade County area. Zane?
How long does a storm surge last? When will it actually go down?
Well, if you remember what we had in Waveland and Bay St. Louis, I mean, some of those waves that of 20 to 30 feet went 3 to 4 miles inland. As the eye goes by, the winds absolutely shift direction, and then the water will run back out gradually. But storm surge could last 3 or 4 hours easily.
At what point, then, does Wilma actually lose its intensity?
Well, if it was going to hit a mountain range, it would lose intensity. When it gets out into the Atlantic Ocean, it's actually going to try to merge in a perfect storm type scenario, although it does not look like that's going to happen. But it could still hit Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada with winds to 75 miles per hour, and that's a long distance up the Atlantic Ocean. Now, a lot of people say, oh wait, that's water's cold, that can't happen. But what happens is if you think of the equator, there is no spin to the air at the equator. There is no what we call Coriolis force. There's infinite Coriolis force at the pole, at the North Pole and the South Pole. So as you start to move this storm away, even though you lose energy, you gain spin. So the whole thing starts spinning faster, even though it's starting to lose energy. It's 50-50, tug one way, tug the other way, kind of like what we had here today. With this storm, we had warm water in the Gulf of Mexico. That tried to make the storm bigger. And we had some winds that actually began to move the storm. That tried to make the storm smaller. Call that shear. Well, clearly from 105 to 110, and then overnight 120, and now 125, the warm water won. See?
Chad Myers at our weather center. Thanks so much, Chad. As we're talking about storm surge, Ed Rappaport a moment ago just told us that storm surge in Naples is anticipated to go up to 8 feet. Miles O'Brien is in Naples for us today. So is Mayor Bill Barnett. He joins us from City Hall. Thank you so much for being with us, Mayor. Firstly, how are you doing? What are the conditions now?
It's been a rough night, but you know, I'm locked in down here, and just the wind alone, you know, is scary. Doesn't describe it. I can tell you that. It's just it's something you just don't want to be in. And I know all your storm forecasters and people that are out there in it all the time are used to it, but it's not something that I want to be in. I'll tell you that.
Naples itself is in the northern eye wall of the storm. You're looking at live pictures coming to us from Naples. There are strong gusts of wind.